Let's gently begin this sleep meditation by arriving gently right where you are, without needing to change anything about this moment. Thank you for being here tonight, my sweet friend. Before we continue, if you're listening tonight, I'd love to hear from you. Can you leave a comment saying where you're listening from? Because it makes this space feel cozy and connected. Together we're softening, settling, and letting the room around you become quieter in the gentlest way. This is a cozy room fade-out meditation. It's designed to help your mind and body downshift by imagining a familiar, safe room slowly dimming into rest. It's not about forcing sleep, because forcing usually makes the nervous system more alert. Instead, it's about creating a steady sense of safety, like turning down the brightness of a lamp one notch at a time. And as everything fades softer, your body can remember it's allowed to let go. Find a comfortable position now and let comfort be good enough, not perfect. If you're lying down, let the surface beneath you hold more of your weight. If you're on your side, allow your knees to bend naturally. And let your shoulders round forward just a little. If you're on your back, let your arms rest where they fall easily, palms relaxed, fingers loose. If you're seated, let your spine be tall but soft, like a candle that stands without strain. Make one small adjustment that helps your body believe it's safe. Maybe it's pulling the blanket higher or tucking a pillow under your knees. Maybe it's shifting your hips a fraction, or letting your head settle deeper into the pillow. Maybe it's unclenching your jaw, relaxing your tongue and letting your teeth separate slightly. Small adjustments matter, because your body listens to small signals. Now let your eyes close if that feels comfortable, or soften your gaze if you prefer. Relax the muscles around the eyes as if they are becoming pleasantly heavy. Smooth the forehead gently, letting the eyebrows rest without holding. Let the cheeks soften and let the mouth become neutral and easy. Feel the jaw loosen as if the day's effort is sliding off your face. Take a slow inhale through the nose, gentle and unforced. Exhale softly, as if you are fogging a window with warmth. Inhale again, feeling the ribs widen just a little. Exhale again, letting the ribs settle back like a quiet room returning to stillness. Let your breathing find a comfortable pace, not too deep, not too shallow, just natural. Now imagine that you are in a cozy, safe room that belongs to you. It might be the room you're in right now, or it might be a room your mind creates. This room is gentle and familiar, with soft textures and calm corners. There is nothing cluttered here that pulls on your attention. Everything in this room is placed in a way that lets your shoulders relax. Notice the temperature of the room in your imagination. It's just right. Slightly warm, like a blanket fresh from the dryer. Notice the air clean and calm, as if it has been filtered through something soothing. Notice the scent, maybe a hint of tea or clean linen or a faint touch of vanilla. Let that scent be a signal telling your body you are safe here. Now notice the lighting in the room. There is a gentle lamp on, not bright, just enough to make the space feel warm. The lamp casts an amber glow that pools softly over blankets and pillows. Shadows are smooth, not sharp, and corners feel friendly. The light feels like a hush, like the room is speaking quietly. In this cozy room fade-out meditation, the room will dim slowly in stages. Each stage is like turning down the brightness of your inner world. As the room fades, your thoughts can fade too, because the mind often follows the environment. You don't have to push thoughts away, you simply let them become less important. The room becomes the main focus, and the room is safe. Begin by noticing one object in the room that feels especially comforting. It could be a mug on a table, a book on a shelf, a soft blanket, or a little lamp. Let your attention rest on that object, as if you're looking at it without needing anything from it. Notice its color, its shape, and the calm feeling it brings. Allow that calm feeling to spread into your chest like warmth. Now imagine that there is a dimmer switch on the wall, easy to reach. It might be a real dimmer switch, or it might be a simple dial that turns smoothly. In your imagination, you don't have to get up. You can simply reach it with your mind. As you inhale, you place your fingers on the dimmer. As you exhale, you turn it down just one notch. Notice the room respond immediately. The lamp glow softens slightly, making the shadows even gentler. The room does not become dark, it simply becomes calmer. Your eyes feel heavier in response, as if they are happy to rest. Your shoulders relax another millimeter, because the environment is telling you it's okay. Now return to your breath, slow and easy. Inhale, the room holds you. Exhale, the room quiets you. Inhale, you are safe enough to soften. Exhale, you are allowed to let go. Imagine a gentle sound in the room, something steady and comforting. It might be soft rain tapping a window, or a distant ocean hush, or a quiet fan. It might be the hum of a heater, the tick of a clock that isn't urgent, or the faint crackle of a fireplace. Let the sound become background music for rest. Let it remind your nervous system that everything is steady. Now, if thoughts show up, treat them like visitors passing through a hallway. You do not need to stop them or invite them to stay. You simply notice there's a thought, and you return to the cozy room. Each time you return, you are teaching your brain a new path. That path leads toward quiet. In your cozy room, there is a small shelf, like a bedside shelf or a little wall shelf. This shelf is for later, and it holds anything that does not need your attention tonight. Imagine placing one small worry on the shelf now. Not the biggest worry, just one small one, like a paper note. Set it down gently and feel your fingers release it. The shelf holds it easily and it does not fall. Nothing bad happens when you set it down. In fact, your body feels a little lighter when you do. Now place another small worry on the shelf, or place a to-do list or a conversation replay. The shelf is sturdy and it is patient, and it is not asking you to fix anything right now. Return to the dimmer switch in your imagination. Inhale, fingers on the dial. Exhale, turn it down one more notch. The room dims again, and the amber light becomes softer, like honey dissolving into tea. Your eyelids grow heavier and your face smooths into ease. Notice the bed or couch in the room, the place where you are resting. It looks inviting, like it's been made for you by someone who knows exactly what you need. The fabric is soft, the pillows are supportive, and the blanket is the perfect weight. You feel held from beneath and covered from above, a simple kind of safety. This is the kind of safety your nervous system understands immediately. Now bring attention to your body, starting at the top of the head. Imagine the room's soft light touching your scalp, loosening any tiny tension. Let the forehead smooth again. Let the eyes rest deeper in their sockets. Let the jaw remain unclenched, and let the tongue be heavy and calm. Move your attention down to the neck and shoulders. Imagine the room's warmth gathering there like a gentle scarf. On the exhale, let the shoulders drop, as if they no longer need to hold the day up. Let the upper back widen like a soft stretch without effort. Let the chest rise and fall, easy and unforced. Now the arms. Let the elbows feel heavy, resting. Let the wrists loosen. Let the fingers uncurl, as if they are letting go of invisible tasks. Feel the palms warm and open. Now the belly. Allow the belly to soften, because a soft belly tells the body it can stop guarding. Inhale, belly rises. Exhale, belly falls. Let the breath be gentle enough that your body trusts it. Now the hips and legs. Let the hips feel wide and supported. Let the thighs relax, heavy and still. Let the knees be easy, not locked, not braced. Let the calves soften and let the ankles rest. Let the feet release as if they are melting into the bed. Now return to the cozy room again, because the room is part of the meditation. Notice how it looks dimmer now, calmer, quieter. The objects in the room are still there, but they are less sharp, less demanding. The corners feel safe, and the air feels still. The room feels like it is preparing to sleep with you. One more time, reach for the dimmer switch. Inhale, hand on the dial. Exhale, turn it down another notch. Now the lamplight is very low, a soft glow like a candle behind frosted glass. Your mind begins to quiet because the room is saying it's time to rest. If thoughts appear, let them become fuzzy at the edges, like words seen through sleepy eyes. You do not have to complete them. You do not have to follow them. They can drift into the background, like distant traffic you no longer pay attention to. Your focus can remain on the feeling of being held, covered, and safe. Now imagine the room's final stage of fading. The lamp is still on, but it's almost off, like a nightlight. The sound in the room remains steady, gentle, and predictable. The shelf holds anything you set down, quietly and reliably. The bed holds you, and you don't need to hold yourself. As you breathe, let the fade out happen inside you too. Let the day's brightness dim behind your eyes. Let your inner dialogue grow quieter, like a radio turning down until it becomes silence. Let your muscles release in small waves, starting at the face and moving down to the feet. Let your breathing stay slow and natural, because natural breath is the easiest breath to sleep with. In a moment, the meditation will continue beyond this introduction, with longer, quiet spaces and fewer words. For now, rest in the cozy room you've built and notice how safe it feels to be here. Notice how dim light makes everything softer, including the mind. Notice how the body responds when it realizes it doesn't have to perform tonight. And as the room fades toward darkness, allow yourself to fade with it, gently, steadily, and without effort. Let's float into the sky and fly over a soothing river. The river is already moving when you arrive, slow and steady under a velvet night sky. It isn't made of ordinary water, but of soft sound that glints like moonlight. Each ripple carries a gentle melody, and the melodies drift along the surface like lily pads. They float in calm clusters, round and luminous, humming with quiet comfort. A breeze passes over the riverbank, and the air tastes faintly of mint and clean rain. Tall grasses sway in time with the music, as if the land itself is listening. A narrow path leads to the edge of the River of Lullabies, lined with small lantern stones. The stones glow softly, not bright enough to wake you, just bright enough to guide you. You step closer and notice the river's melodies aren't loud, but tender and low. They sound like distant humming in a cozy room, like a lullaby remembered rather than sung. The surface is dotted with note lily pads, each one marked by a simple symbol. A round note, a curved note, a gentle rest, and a tiny swaying line that looks like a sigh. A wooden sign rests beside the water, carved with words that feel like permission. Step slowly, it reads, and let the river carry the rest. A second line appears beneath it as if the river is writing. You do not have to hurry to reach sleep. You take a steady breath, and the nearest lily pad drifts closer, waiting. You place one foot onto the first note lily pad, expecting it to wobble. Instead, it steadies under you, warm and supportive like a gentle palm. A soft chord rises from it, a calm sound that seems to settle behind your ribs. You step onto the next note lily pad and the chord becomes a little deeper. The river responds as if it recognizes your weight and welcomes it. Each step creates a small ripple of sound that spreads outward in slow circles. The far bank of the river is visible, but it doesn't feel far in a stressful way. It feels like a gentle destination, the way a bed feels from across a dim room. You continue, moving from note to note, noticing how your body naturally slows. The melodies underfoot are different on each lily pad, but they all share one softness. None of them demand your attention, and none of them push you forward too fast. Above, the sky holds a handful of stars that blink as if they're keeping time. They do not sparkle sharply, but glow like small warm dots behind frosted glass. Clouds drift by lazily, and even the clouds seem to hum along. A crescent moon rests low near the horizon, like it's watching kindly. You feel the river's rhythm begin to shape your breathing without effort. Inhale, and the note lily pad beneath you hums a little brighter. Exhale, and the hum softens into a warm, steady hush. The hush spreads into your shoulders, loosening them from the day. It spreads into your jaw, reminding it to unclench. It spreads into your hands, encouraging your fingers to relax open. A small boat appears nearby, gliding along the river with no oars. It is made of pale wood and lined with soft blankets that look like clouds. A lantern hangs at its bow, glowing with a sleepy amber light. The boat drifts beside you, keeping pace like a quiet companion. You notice a basket inside the boat, filled with folded paper slips. Each slip is labeled with a single word, simple and kind. One slip says later, another says enough, and another says safe. The boat's lantern flickers gently, and you understand what the basket is for. If a worry rises, you can fold it into a word and place it here. Not to erase it forever, but to hold it somewhere that isn't your chest. The thought feels relieving, like setting down a bag you forgot you were carrying. You step onto another note lily pad, and a tiny melody lifts up like a firefly. It floats beside your ear and then drifts away, leaving calm behind. A worry tries to appear, the kind that usually sharpens at night. It hovers like a small dark shape at the edge of your mind. You don't chase it, and you don't argue with it. You simply imagine folding it into one gentle word. Tomorrow, you think, and the word feels soft rather than heavy. You glance toward the boat, and the basket seems to glow slightly in invitation. In your mind, the folded word drifts into the basket like a leaf landing on water. The lantern light warms, and the worry loosens its grip without drama. You return your attention to the note beneath your feet, and the river keeps humming. The note lily pads ahead form a gentle curve like a musical staff drawn across the water. You follow the curve, stepping slowly, feeling safe in the steadiness. Each lily pad has its own texture, some smooth as silk, some soft as velvet moss. They are all warm, as if they've been sunlit in a place that never rushes. The river's melodies change subtly as you move, becoming lower and calmer. A cluster of reeds rises from the water nearby, and each reed carries a tiny bell. The bells do not ring sharply, only whisper when the breeze passes. Their sound is like a soft bedtime chime, spaced far enough apart to feel peaceful. You notice how the space between sounds makes your thoughts grow quieter too. The river teaches you that pauses are part of comfort. A lily pad marked with a rest symbol drifts beneath you, and it feels extra steady. When you step on it, the music becomes a hush, like a warm hand over a buzzing mind. You linger for a moment, letting the hush spread through your chest. Your heartbeat feels calmer, not because you forced it, but because the environment is kind. The boat glides alongside, lantern steady, basket waiting without pressure. On the far bank, you can now see a small pavilion made of pale wood and linen curtains. It sits among willows that bow toward the river like gentle guardians. Soft lights glow inside the pavilion, like candles behind paper shades. A narrow dock extends from it, reaching toward the water. You realize that is your resting place, waiting without urgency. You continue stepping, and the lily pads seem to arrange themselves to make it easy. If one drifts away, another slides in, as if the river is always prepared. This river does not test you, and it does not demand balance. It simply offers support, note by note, until your body believes it can relax. You feel your shoulders drop further, like two stones sinking into warm sand. A faint melody rises from beneath the surface, deeper than the others. It sounds like a cello played far away, slow and soothing. The sound doesn't pull you into sadness, only into stillness. It reminds your spine to soften, one vertebra at a time. Your neck relaxes, your upper back widens, and your lower back feels supported. The river's notes begin to glow dimmer, as if they're preparing for sleep too. They are still present, but less bright, like night lights in a quiet home. You step onto a note lily pad that hums a gentle lullaby you almost recognize. It feels like something a kind person once hummed while you were safe. Your mind softens around that feeling, letting it be enough. Another thought tries to appear, a little list of things to remember. You notice it as if you're watching it from a cozy chair across the room. You fold it into a single word, later, and let it drift into the boat's basket. The boat's lantern gives a tiny warm glow, like a quiet thank you. The list dissolves into the river's music, harmless and distant. Now you are close enough to see a blanket on the dock, folded neatly and waiting. The blanket is thick and soft, the kind that feels like instant comfort. A pillow rests beside it, covered in linen that looks cool and clean. A small cup of warm tea sits on a low table, steaming gently without rushing. The pavilion curtains move with the breeze, slow and sleepy. The last few lily pads are larger, like gentle stepping stones of melody. They hum in a lower register, as if guiding you deeper into calm. You step onto the final note lily pad, and the river's music becomes a soft, steady drone. It feels like a blanket of sound laid across the surface of your thoughts. You step onto the dock, and the wooden boards feel warm under your feet. The moment you reach the dock, the boat drifts in and ties itself gently to a post. The basket remains inside, holding the folded words you set down. You don't need to look at them again tonight, because they're already handled enough. The lantern light reflects on the river like a long, soft ribbon. The willows sway overhead, their leaves whispering like pages turning. You step into the pavilion, and the air inside is warmer, like a protected pocket of night. The floor is covered with a soft rug that muffles sound. A small wind chime hangs near the entrance, and it sings only once, gently. Everything here feels designed to soothe, not to impress. You settle onto the blanket, letting your body sink into comfort. The pillow supports your head as if it knows exactly where your neck needs rest. You pull the blanket over your legs, and its weight feels like protection. The river continues outside, carrying melodies like lily pads drifting slowly past. From here, the music is quieter, like it has moved into the background. You can still hear it, but you don't have to focus on it. A small lantern inside the pavilion glows at a very low setting. It is the kind of light that tells your eyes they can become heavy. Your eyelids soften and your face relaxes as if it's sliding into peace. You notice your hands resting open on the blanket, palms warm and empty. You notice your jaw unclenched and your tongue resting calmly. Outside, the boat unties itself quietly and begins to drift downriver. It carries your folded words gently, not to lose them, but to hold them for tomorrow. Its lantern grows smaller in the distance, like a firefly floating away. The river seems to hum, enough for today, in a melody that barely reaches language. You let that message settle inside you, soft and believable. The willows sway again, and their leaves cast moving shadows like slow lullaby notes. The pavilion curtains drift inward and outward, matching your breath. Inhale, the curtains lift slightly. Exhale, they settle again, like the room breathing with you. The longer you rest here, the more the river's music becomes part of the quiet. Your thoughts begin to blur at the edges, like ink dissolving in warm water. They are still there somewhere, but they are not sharp enough to bother you. A soft melody drifts by on the river, and you imagine stepping on it again without moving. You imagine the note lily pad beneath your mind, steady and supportive. The image makes your chest feel safe, and safety invites sleep. The lantern in the pavilion dims one tiny notch, almost as if it's listening too. The room grows darker, but not scary, because the darkness is warm. Your shoulders sink deeper into the blanket, and your spine releases with a slow sigh. Your legs feel heavy in a comforting way, like they're finally allowed to stop. Your breathing becomes slower, with longer, gentler exhales. The River of Lullabies continues its steady flow, carrying soft melodies toward unseen places of rest. Each melody that passes feels like a promise that you don't have to hold the world tonight. The pavilion becomes quieter, and even the willows seem to move less. The sounds stretch farther apart, leaving more space between them. In that space, your mind grows still, not empty, just resting. A final melody floats by that sounds like a gentle hum near your ear. It is simple, steady, and warm, like someone saying goodnight without words. You let your eyelids fall fully closed, and you stop trying to notice anything at all. The blanket holds you, the pillow supports you, and the river sings on. Sleep gathers around you like a soft fog, patient and kind. Your breath remains slow, your face remains soft, and your body stays heavy and safe. The pavilion lantern dims again until it is barely aglow. The river's melodies drift farther away, quieter now, like a lullaby fading as you fall asleep. You don't need to follow the music because it has already guided you home. You let yourself drift, carried by rest, one gentle breath at a time. Junie first noticed it the way you notice a dream trying to follow you into waking life. Soft, patient, and impossible to explain if someone asked. A delicate tapping in the stairwell, as if a tiny knuckle was politely requesting permission to exist. Not loud enough to be threatening, not steady enough to ignore, just consistent enough to make her pause at her own door and hold her breath, listening for the next little tick. The first night, Junie told herself it was nothing. Buildings make sounds, she reasoned, the way old books creak when you open them and floors sigh when you cross the room. Her apartment complex was the kind with a narrow stairwell, painted a tired beige, with a handrail that had been touched by 1,000 hurried hands. It wasn't haunted. It wasn't magical. It wasn't anything but practical. 4 stories, a small lobby, and doors that always shut with a soft, stubborn click. Still, the tapping returned. Every night, always after the world outside had decided to quiet down. Not at dinner, not during the busy hours of evening, but later, when the neighbors' televisions were low and distant, when the last elevator ride was done, when Junie had brushed her teeth and turned off the kitchen light. That was when it began. Junie was not the kind of person who spiraled easily. If something puzzled her, she didn't rush to panic or drama. She made tea. She took notes. She held calm thoughts like smooth stones in her pocket. So on the second night, she didn't flinch. She didn't imagine footsteps or shadows, or a stranger lingering beyond the stairwell door. She simply stood still, one hand resting on the lock, and listened with the careful attention of someone trying to catch the last word of a whisper. It was gentler than a dripping faucet, softer than a pencil tapping a desk. More like the light brush of something small meeting something hollow. The sound carried oddly, too, as if it couldn't decide which direction it wanted to travel. Junie opened the door. Not quickly, not like she was bracing for a surprise, but slowly, the way she opened windows on spring mornings. The stairwell air was cooler than her apartment, tinged with faint soap and old paint. The hallway light hummed overhead, steady and a little too bright for the hour. She stepped out with her slippers on, a cardigan wrapped around her shoulders, and her tea mug warming her palms. If she was going to solve this, she decided, she would solve it in a way that didn't disturb her own peace. Junie had a quiet routine that mattered to her. She liked the end of the day to feel like a soft landing, not a tumble. So she made a plan that was gentle and simple. No big confrontations. No frantic midnight calls to maintenance unless she had a real reason. Just observation. Just curiosity. That night she stood at the top of the stairwell and listened. The tapping came again, and this time she noticed something new. It wasn't everywhere. It wasn't the whole stairwell breathing. It was localized, as if the sound had a home. Junie walked one step down. The tapping seemed a fraction louder. She walked another. It softened. Another, and it strengthened again, as if she had stepped into the sound's favorite spot. She paused on the landing between the third and second floors. There was a small window there, the kind that never opened, its glass faintly fogged at the edges. A narrow ledge held a lonely spider plant that someone had attempted to keep alive. The plant leaned slightly toward the light, leaves thin and determined. The sound was clearer here. Junie tilted her head and narrowed her focus like tuning an old radio. It didn't feel sinister. It felt accidental. Junie's mind offered possibilities the way a librarian offers book recommendations. A loose pipe, a vent cover shifting with the heat, a sign or ornament vibrating when the building settled. She didn't decide too early, because guessing wasn't the same as knowing. She took out her phone, not to call anyone, but to open the Notes app. She typed, tapping louder on landing between third and second, not constant, soft. Then she added a timestamp. 10:47 p.m. When she returned to her apartment, she left her door chain unlatched for a moment so she could listen again from inside. The tapping was still there, muffled now, but present. Junie sipped her tea, feeling oddly comforted by the fact that she could hear it and still remain calm. The third night, she made it official. A small mystery, she told herself, deserved a small method. She made a list in her notebook, not digital this time, because she liked the sound of pen on paper. She wrote, Observation plan. Listen at different times. Find where it's loudest. Note what else is happening. Heater, elevator, footsteps, wind. Solve gently. Junie didn't consider herself a detective exactly, but she had always liked puzzles that didn't hurt anyone, the kind that ended with a simple fix and an exhale. That evening she listened earlier than usual. 9:15 p.m., when the building still held a bit of bustle. She stood outside her apartment and waited. No tapping, only the soft buzz of lights, a distant murmur of someone talking on the phone, and the sigh of the elevator far below. At 9:45 p.m. she tried again. A faint tapping began, but only after the elevator had stopped moving. Junie's eyebrows lifted slightly, so the sound might have a companion. Stillness. At 10:30 p.m. she went into the stairwell, cardigan on, notebook in hand. This time she didn't walk immediately. She stood quietly and let the building speak. The tapping seemed to ride on the air itself, like it had learned how to travel along corners and railings. Junie followed it the way someone follows a trail of wind chimes on a porch, one slow step at a time. She went down to the landing where the spider plant lived. She leaned closer to the handrail. The rail was metal, cool under her fingertips, and when she lightly pressed it, the tapping softened. Junie paused. That was interesting. She removed her hand. She pressed again. The sound dulled, as if she had quieted a tiny drum. She didn't squeeze. She didn't yank. She simply tested, gentle as a person petting a shy cat. Her gaze traveled along the rail, following its line to where it met the wall. There was a bracket there, 2 screws, a little plate, paint slightly cracked where years of movement had tugged and loosened. Junie could see a slim gap between metal and wall. Not dramatic, not dangerous, but enough to allow the rail to shift when the building warmed and cooled. Could that be it? The rail barely flexing, a screw wiggling in its tired home, the sound of small movement becoming a nighttime percussion. Junie wrote in her notebook, rail bracket on landing between 3rd and 2nd might be involved. Pressing rail reduces tapping. Still, she didn't assume she was done, because the tapping had a softness that felt like more than metal, and Junie liked to be certain. On the 4th night, she added one more layer to her plan. She brought a small flashlight, the kind that made a calm circle of light instead of a harsh beam. She also brought a scarf, not for warmth, but because scarves made good, gentle tools. If something was brushing or vibrating, she reasoned, a soft cloth might reveal it. The idea was not to force anything, just to listen differently. She went to the landing at 10:52 p.m. The spider plant looked the same as always, leaves drooping slightly as if it too was tired. Junie shined the flashlight along the wall, over the bracket, and down the rail. She noticed then that the tapping wasn't perfectly spaced. Sometimes it came quicker, like a tiny impatient rhythm. Sometimes it slowed, as if the sound itself was taking a breath. Junie held her scarf near the bracket without touching it. The tapping continued. She moved the scarf closer, and the cloth fluttered very slightly. Not from wind. There was no draft strong enough to stir it. The flutter seemed timed with the tap. Junie's eyes narrowed in soft concentration. She followed the scarf's motion, letting it guide her attention the way a pendulum guides a gaze. The bracket wasn't the only thing moving. Just above it, near the edge of the landing window frame, a thin decorative charm hung from a small hook someone had stuck there long ago. It was easy to miss, because it was pale and small. Just a little metal leaf attached to a short chain, like a wind chime piece without the rest of the chime. Junie stared at it, surprised by how ordinary it looked. The charm wasn't swinging wildly. It was barely moving at all. But every few seconds, it would drift enough to brush the railing. Metal against metal. Soft, polite tapping. Junie lifted the flashlight higher and saw the truth of it. The charm's edge had a tiny worn spot where it met the railing again and again. Not sharp, not damaging, just repetitive, patient contact. Now Junie could connect the other clue too. The charm moved more when the building's heater turned on, creating subtle vibrations through the wall and rail. Not a gust of air, not something dramatic, just the hum of heat, the settling of structure, the quiet mechanics of an old place doing its job. Junie let out a slow breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Relief arrived, not as excitement, but as softness, because the tapping had a reason, and reasons were kinder than mysteries. Still, she didn't rush. Junie looked at the charm and the hook and considered the best way to solve this without making anyone's night louder. She could remove it, but it might belong to someone. She could report it, but that felt like bringing in a whole crew for something the size of a paperclip. So she chose the simplest, gentlest fix. She wrapped the scarf around the charm, just enough to stop it from brushing the rail. The tapping stopped immediately. Silence settled into the stairwell like a blanket being smoothed out. Junie stood very still, listening for any leftover sound. Nothing. Only the distant hum of the building, now unaccompanied by its small nighttime percussion. She didn't feel triumphant. she felt peaceful, as if she had put a restless thought to bed. Of course, the scarf couldn't stay there. Junie needed a solution that didn't involve sacrificing her favorite soft gray wrap to the stairwell forever. But now she knew what she needed. Something to secure the charm so it wouldn't brush the railing again. The next morning, she made a tiny list on her grocery pad. It included tea, bananas, and a roll of ribbon. Not thick ribbon, just a simple, soft one, the kind used for gift wrapping. That night, she returned with the ribbon tucked into her cardigan pocket. The tapping had returned after she removed her scarf earlier in the day, and Junie could tell before she even reached the landing. It greeted her like a small habit. She climbed down to the landing and shined her flashlight up at the charm. She didn't judge whoever had hung it there. Maybe someone had wanted the stairwell to feel less plain. Maybe they liked the idea of a tiny leaf catching light. Maybe it had once been part of a full wind chime, and this was what remained. Junie gently pinched the chain between her fingers to steady it. With the other hand, she looped the ribbon around the hook and the chain, tying it so the charm would sit slightly farther from the railing. She didn't knot it too tight. She left it neat and simple, like a bow on a quiet present. Then she let go. The charm hung peacefully, still able to exist, still able to be decorative, but no longer able to tap the railing. Junie waited. The heater hummed somewhere deeper in the building. A faint vibration passed through the wall. The charm trembled slightly, but it stayed in place. No tapping. Junie smiled, small and private. She made a note in her notebook anyway, because she liked closing loops properly. Tapping source, loose charm, brushing stair rail due to vibration, secured with ribbon, sound resolved. When she walked back up to her apartment, the stairwell felt different. Not because it had transformed, not because it was suddenly charming or bright, but because it was quiet in the way she had wanted it to be. The absence of the sound made the space feel smoother, as if something had stopped snagging the air. Junie unlocked her door and stepped inside. Her apartment greeted her with familiar softness. Lamplight, a folded blanket on the couch, the faint scent of lavender from her hand lotion. She set her notebook on the counter and washed her mug. There was a particular kind of satisfaction in solving something without turning it into a crisis. Junie felt it settle in her chest like warmth. No drama, no fear, just attention and patience and a small, tidy ending. As she prepared for bed, she realized the tapping had never truly been her enemy. It had been a question. and she had answered it with calm. Later, when she lay beneath her blanket, she listened for the sound out of habit. The building was quiet. Outside, a car passed on the street below, its tires whispering against the pavement. Somewhere far away, a neighbor's faucet ran briefly, then stopped. Junie let her eyes close gently. She thought of the little leaf charm hanging peacefully, no longer tapping, simply being still. She thought of how sometimes the things that keep you awake aren't big, dramatic worries. Sometimes they are tiny, repetitive sounds that your mind can't help but follow. And sometimes the solution isn't force, it's softness. It's paying attention, then offering the smallest adjustment. Junie's breathing slowed, her shoulders softened. Her jaw unclenched the way it always did when she finally felt safe to rest. In the quiet, the stairwell mystery became something else entirely. A reminder that calm curiosity could be stronger than unease. That patience could turn a nighttime annoyance into a solved, gentle story. That peace could be built, sometimes, with nothing more than a ribbon and a steady hand. And in the absence of tapping, Junie drifted toward sleep as if the whole building had decided to settle with her. Not hurried, not heavy, just quiet, soft, and finally still. Junie stood on the landing between the third and second floors with her tea warming her palms, and she let the stairwell become very still around her. The tapping returned in its usual gentle rhythm, as if it had been waiting patiently for her to arrive. She didn't feel afraid, only curious, because the sound was too polite to be a threat and too persistent to be nothing at all. She listened for a full minute without moving. She noticed how the sound wasn't evenly spaced, like a clock. It came in soft clusters, then paused, then came again, as if the building itself was taking tiny breaths between each tap. Junie shifted her weight to the left, then to the right, and the tapping seemed to change with her position. When she stepped one stair down, the sound grew clearer. When she stepped back up, it dulled again, like a whisper being tucked under a pillow. She looked around carefully, letting her eyes move slowly over the familiar details. The narrow window that never opened, the slightly crooked notice board with old flyers, the handrail that felt cool and sturdy beneath her fingertips. Junie raised her eyebrows slightly, as if the sound had answered her attention with a little nod. She reached out and pressed her palm lightly against the handrail, not pushing, just resting. The tapping softened at once, like a small drum being muffled with a blanket. That single change told her something important. The sound wasn't happening everywhere. It was happening here, around this rail, and her touch was interrupting whatever tiny movement created it. Junie took her hand away. She placed her hand back on the rail. The sound dulled again. She felt a quiet satisfaction in that simple test. A mystery, she reminded herself, was only a pattern waiting to be understood. So she made herself a promise. No rushing, no guessing, just gentle steps. She set her tea on the windowsill and took out her phone, opening the Notes app. Landing between 3 and 2 floors. Tapping decreases when rail is touched. She typed. She added the time. 10:53 p.m. Then she waited. Not because she wanted the sound to continue, but because she wanted to watch it behave. If it was caused by heat, wind, or movement, it would reveal itself when the right moment arrived. The stairwell was quiet enough that she could hear other small things, the distant click of someone's lock, a faint elevator hum far below, the soft electrical buzz of the ceiling light, and beneath all that, the tapping. Junie tilted her head and followed the sound like a person following the direction of a breeze. Her eyes traced the length of the rail, noticing where it met the wall in a painted bracket. The paint there was cracked, like a thin smile line in an old face. The screws looked slightly tired, as if they'd been holding on for years without much appreciation. Junie leaned closer, careful not to put her weight on the rail. She could see a small gap between the bracket and the wall, not dramatic, just enough to allow a tiny tremble. But the tapping didn't sound like a loose screw alone. It sounded softer, like a brush rather than a knock. She turned her gaze upward and scanned the window frame. That was when she saw it, almost hidden against the pale paint. A small decorative charm, shaped like a leaf, hanging from a short chain attached to a hook near the window. It wasn't a full wind chime, just one leftover piece, like a single note from a song. It hung quietly most of the time, barely moving. But every few seconds it drifted just enough to brush the railing, and the light tap of metal against metal traveled down the stairwell like a soft message. Junie's expression softened with relief. This made sense in the simplest way. A charm, a rail, a tiny movement repeated at night when the building settled and the air changed. She watched closely, waiting for the charm to move again. For a moment, it stayed still, hanging like a small ornament in a museum. Then, from somewhere deeper in the building, the heater clicked on. Junie felt it more than she heard it. A subtle vibration traveled through the wall, through the bracket, through the handrail. The charm responded with a tiny sway, just enough for the leaf-shaped edge to kiss the rail once more. "Oh," Junie whispered, not because she needed to speak, but because the answer felt like a gentle exhale. The heater wasn't causing a problem. It was simply providing the little tremor the charm needed to reach the rail. It was no more sinister than a curtain moving when someone opens a door. Junie could have laughed, but she didn't want to wake the quiet. Instead, she smiled to herself, small and warm. This was the kind of mystery she liked best. One that ended with softness and a simple fix. She reached into her cardigan pocket and felt for the ribbon she had brought earlier that day. It was a pale ribbon, smooth between her fingers, the kind meant for wrapping gifts or tying up small bundles. She had chosen it intentionally because she didn't want a loud solution for a quiet problem. Junie steadied the charm with one hand, pinching the chain gently between her fingers. She didn't tug, she didn't yank. She simply held it still, like calming a small bird. With her other hand, she looped the ribbon around the hook and the chain. She tied it in a neat bow, the kind that looked like it belonged there. Not messy, not rushed, not temporary looking. A quiet little bow that held the charm slightly farther from the railing. She let go slowly. The charm hung again, now steadier, its leaf shape catching a sliver of stairwell light. Junie waited, because waiting was part of her method. The heater continued to run. Another faint vibration moved through the rail. The charm trembled, then settled. No tapping came. The silence that followed felt clean. It wasn't empty, because the building still had its natural hum, but the particular sound that had been snagging Junie's attention was gone. It was as if someone had smoothed a wrinkle out of the night. Junie picked up her tea and took one slow sip. The warmth traveled through her chest, and she felt the calm settle deeper. She made a quick note in her phone. Source: loose wind chime charm brushing rail when heater vibrates. Secured with ribbon. Quiet restored. She looked once more at the charm and the bow, and she felt satisfied in a gentle way. She hadn't removed anything that might belong to a neighbor. She hadn't caused a commotion. She had simply helped the stairwell settle into the kind of quiet it was meant to hold. As Junie climbed back up the stairs, her slippers made soft sounds on the steps. The building felt calmer, not because it had changed, but because her attention had stopped snagging on that repeated tap. Sometimes, she thought, peace arrived not with grand gestures, but with tiny adjustments. She reached her floor and paused outside her door out of habit. She listened. No tapping came through the hallway. Junie unlocked her door, stepped inside, and gently closed it behind her. Her apartment greeted her with familiar comfort. The soft lamp glow in the corner, the folded blanket on the couch, the faint lavender scent from her hand lotion on the bathroom counter. She moved through her nighttime routine slowly, as if she were teaching her body that it was safe to unwind. She rinsed her tea mug and set it on the drying rack. She washed her hands and watched the water run clear. She brushed her teeth and kept her shoulders relaxed. When she changed into her pajamas, she noticed how different her mind felt without that small question hanging in the air. Her thoughts were quieter, not because she was forcing them to be, but because there was nothing poking at her attention anymore. The stairwell mystery had been like a loose thread. Now it was tied off neatly. Junie turned down the lights and walked to her bedroom. The sheets were cool when she slipped under them, then warmed quickly against her skin. She pulled the blanket up to her chest and let her shoulders sink. For a moment, she listened again, as if her ears were still expecting the tapping to return. She heard only the soft background sounds of a lived-in building, a distant plumbing sigh, the faint rush of air in the vents. Somewhere far below, a door closing gently. No tick, no tapping. Junie let her breath move out slowly, long and unhurried. She imagined the little leaf charm on the stairwell landing hanging peacefully, its ribbon bow holding it in place like a quiet promise. She imagined the heater turning on again later in the night, vibrations traveling through the rail, and the charm staying still. There was comfort in that image, not because she needed control over everything, but because she liked when the world made sense in gentle ways. A small cause, a small fix, a quiet result. Junie shifted onto her side and tucked her hands together under her pillow. Her eyelids felt heavier now, and she didn't resist the weight. She didn't need to replay the sound in her mind. She didn't need to wonder what it was. The answer was already tied in place with ribbon. The night could be what it was meant to be, a soft stretch of time where nothing required her. Her breathing slowed naturally, the muscles in her jaw unclenched, her shoulders melted downward, heavy in the best way. She thought briefly about how many tiny sounds the world is full of, most of them harmless. Some of them annoying, a few of them just persistent enough to feel like a worry. But tonight, Junie didn't have to carry that. Tonight the stairwell was quiet. Tonight, the air around her bed felt smooth and untroubled. She let her mind drift toward softer thoughts, the feeling of warm tea in her hands, the neat bow of ribbon on the landing, the peaceful satisfaction of solving something with calm. And as the building settled into its nighttime rhythm, Junie settled too. Her breathing became slow and even, like a steady tide. The quiet stayed quiet. No tapping returned to tug at her attention. Only true silence, softened by the gentle hum of life continuing at a distance. And in that true quiet, Junie finally fell asleep.